Okay, let's talk about this pen, and to the untrained eye, it looks like a Parker 51. The only difference being is that this pen was produced in China and was brand new about 2 months ago. And that's impossible because Parker don't make the Parker 51 anymore, and the reason being that this is so new is that it's a Parker 51 knockoff. It's actually a Hero 616 made by the pen company Hero. And because it's a Parker 51 knockoff, you get all the wonderful things like a hooded nib, and I'll show you later on Parker's really nice vacuum bag filling system. And the good thing is, because this is made in China, they can produce these for a stupidly low price. This pen cost me $1 off eBay plus free shipping, which is probably the cheapest fountain pen that I own. But the downside of such a cheap fountain pen is you get a lot of QC quality control errors. And when I say a lot, there's pretty much a lack of quality control in a lot of these pens that come out of China. So what I did was I bought 2 pens for $1.80, and that was probably the best decision because the first pen that I got from the packet, it refused to fill up. There must have been a leak in the vacuum bag that holds the ink, and it failed to work. So for an extra 80 cents, I'd probably encourage you to get 2 of these fountain pens instead of 1. Okay, so let's discuss the specs. The length of this pen capped is 13.5 centimeters, uncapped 12.7, and posted at 13.7 centimeters. So when you hold this pen, you can hold it posted or unposted. It really doesn't matter. I prefer to have it posted, not because it's not because it's uncomfortable when it's unposted, but because this pen is incredibly light. The weight of this pen posted is 14 grams, and if you take the cap off, it's only 8 grams, and I don't know about you, but a really, really light pen like this is not exactly fun to write with. That being said, this pen does have a really, really nice grip. It's about 1 centimeter thick and tapers down to the end. When you hold it, it's very, very nice. And because it tapers down to a point, there's not exactly a grip section. There's quite a lot of room for you to adjust where you can actually hold it, depending on how big your hand is, writing style. And I find that pretty good because I do write in several ways. I can do, cursive or just blocky letters and all that. So I do find it pretty nice that I can easily and really comfortably hold this in several ways. And the only issue that I have with this grip is that the section can get pretty oily after a while. That's not something that's unique to this pen. It's something that I have to complain with a lot of pens in general. Just that this, I don't know what plastic they've used, but it can get very, very oily after a while. It's not the worst offender, but it certainly does get a bit annoying after a while. Let's show you the converter. So when you take the end of the pen off, you'll be introduced to this metal sort of springy system, and it's pretty useless if I'm honest, because what you do is you press on that, and that presses in this bag, and that creates a vacuum and sucks ink out. But the issue is, I don't think it works all that well, because from what I usually do, I usually have to pinch the whole bag to actually get any ink flow. The filling system in this pen is not amazing. I have used a Parker 51, and the Parker 51 is a lot better than this one. It's pretty much the same filling system, but probably because it's so cheaply made, they've had to cut corners or whatever, but this pen really struggles to fill, and even with all the squeezing in the world, I can't get this pen to fill, the pen's converter to fill all the way to the top. That being said, this is a pretty big converter. It'll last quite a few, maybe 4 or 5 days. So volume, I have no complaints, even though that I can't fill it all the way to the top. This should last quite a while. So on the topic of the nibs, this nib is actually pretty smooth considering the price that I paid for it and probably how fast they're pumping out these nibs. I can't imagine this had any quality control on it, so considering that it is probably mass produced, it's pretty good. There is some scratchiness on the downstrokes I'd like to add, but apart from that, in every other direction, it's pretty smooth. Now, I would like to say that due to the quality control, your nib could probably be different to this one. I've seen quite a lot of other reviews where the nibs have been scratchy or butter smooth, so if your one isn't as smooth as this one, you can probably put it down to that. The nib size is pretty generic. There's no small, medium, broad or anything. It's just a nib, and I would say that this is in the middle of being maybe a Japanese medium or a European fine. There is no definitive way of putting it, but it's slightly thinner than my Pilot Prera, so I would say that but it's not small enough to be a Japanese fine, so I would put it somewhere in the middle, and there is a lot of grey area with nib sizes, so I'll just leave it at that. But the issue is that on this pen specifically, and on the other pen, as well as my Hero 366, the nib is not exactly aligned with the point of the pen, which it doesn't really affect the writing, but I just find that pretty goddamn annoying. It's just slightly off by a few degrees, but it is one of the first things that a lot of people notice when they look at this pen. In terms of wetness, there is a pretty big breather hole, and because of that, it's going to be a pretty wet nib, and it does turn out that that logic does carry on with this pen, because this pen, as well as the Hero 366, which shares, I believe, the same feed as this pen, they are both very wet nibs. In terms of flex, there's pretty much none. It is a hooded nib, and like all hooded nibs, there's very little room for flex, which makes the writing experience very similar to that of a rollerball pen. Not that it's bad or anything, but that is the writing experience that you are going to get. Very little line variation, but it does allow you to write pretty fast, and I have used this pen in an exam to write an essay, and I cranked out a lot more words with this pen than any other fountain pen that I would normally use. The only complaint that I really do have with this nib is it does tend to start dry if I don't use it for about a day or so. A lot of my other pens, yes, they might have a little bit of a dry start, but when this thing dry starts, you really have to take off this and then sort of, flood the feed with ink, and sometimes there's a bit of dry ink on the end of the nib, which is pretty annoying if I really have to just jot down some notes. or anything, which could cost me a bit of valuable time. So what do I like about this pen? What do I not like about this pen? So the price. This is an incredibly cheap pen, $1 for one, $1.80 for two with free shipping. So if this pen breaks, I lose it, or it just doesn't work all that well, it's no big deal for me. And if you want to give this pen as a gift, yeah, no one would know that this pen cost $1. So I have reserved one of these pens to give away if I ever have to give it as a gift or anything, which is pretty nice. I am a big fan of this grip, because I can use it in pretty much any position. There's no definitive position that you need to use it with, saying that I hate the Lamy, Safari, and All-Stars 4. The ink capacity is pretty nice on this pen. As I said, if I use this pen every day, it can last me 3 or 4 days, which is quite a lot, considering that most pens I refill about once a day. Alright, things that really annoy me about this pen. Biggest issue, quality control. There is minimal, if any. I've had 2 of these pens with another one on the way, and so far one pen flat out refuses to work. So far with me, that's a failure rate of about 50%, which is pretty bad. And considering how different a lot of the pens are on someone else's pens to this pen, because I've seen reviews for this pen, and I can tell you that for some of the reviews I've seen, this pen is almost a completely different pen to the one that other people have had, just because of the lack of quality control. Build quality is something that I also have to... I don't want to say build quality because it is such a cheap pen, but even for about $1, this does feel particularly crap, especially around the threads. I do feel that if I unscrew it a little bit and just, bend it a little bit more, this thing is going to snap. Yeah.